size. He's like the big and tall poster boy, and he's a big kid and a big man's body, and he's a good guy. Me and him had our disputes along the years, but we get along pretty good.
What about LeBron James?
You know, LeBron's LeBron. LeBron's like the Tiger Woods of basketball, pretty much. And you can't tell him what to do. I mean, he's, like they call him.
Dennis Rodman just crossed a line that nobody saw coming. The NBA legend, known for never holding back, has launched an explosive attack on LeBron James and Kevin Durant, and it's not about their game. It's about respect, or the lack of it. Rodman claims today's superstars have been quietly disrespecting the legends who paved the way, and he's not staying silent anymore. What started as whispers in locker rooms has now erupted into a full-blown war of words that's dividing the basketball world. And the receipts? They're damning. You think you know everything about LeBron and KD's legacies. Think again, because what Rodman just exposed might completely change how you see these so-called GOATs.
How do we know the brutality of Shaq's game? How do we know the artistry of Stephen Curry's game? If the eye test doesn't matter, then all that matters is he made a three, he made a dunk, he made a layup. No, how they do these things also matter, because it also exhibits a player's ability. Certain players can hit a three, but it could just be a wide open three or a catch and shoot three. And then some players can do what Stephen Curry can do. Some players can.
Let's rewind to where this all started, because this controversy didn't just appear out of nowhere. For months now, there's been a growing tension simmering beneath the surface of the NBA community. Old-school legends have been feeling disrespected, dismissed, and frankly, erased from the conversation. And it all comes down to how today's biggest stars talk about the past. LeBron James and Kevin Durant are two of the greatest players of this generation. Nobody's denying their talent, their championships, or their impact on the game. But here's where things get messy. Over the past year, both of them have made comments that didn't sit right with the legends who built this league. Comments that seemed to minimize the accomplishments of players who dominated in different eras. Comments that suggested the modern game is so superior that anything before it barely counts. Something shifted in early 2025. The basketball world was having its usual GOAT debates, comparing eras, arguing about who would win in hypothetical matchups. But this time, the conversation took a darker turn. LeBron and KD weren't just defending their generation, they were actively diminishing the previous ones. And Dennis Rodman, one of the most decorated defenders in NBA history, 5-time champion, 7-time rebounding champion, wasn't going to let it slide anymore. Rodman's always been unpredictable. He's the guy who showed up to events in a wedding dress, became best friends with a dictator, and never gave a damn about what anyone thought. But when it comes to basketball, when it comes to the legacy of the game he gave everything for, that's where Dennis draws the line. And LeBron and KD just crossed it.
5, 8, and 6 is a task that Kemba Walker has never sniffed in his career. Being a floor general while also being the best scorer on the team, while also being one of the better defenders on the team as well, is a task that Kemba Walker has never had to deal with. He's a great player, maximized his potential. We gave the little Charlotte Hornets hand something to watch at least, but it's levels to this.
Damn.
I'm going with Kate Cunningham.
You win. Chris Bosh or Evan Mobley?
So what exactly did LeBron and KD say that got Rodman this fired up? Let's break it down, because the details matter here. LeBron's been on this campaign for years now, subtly and not so subtly, suggesting that his era is superior to everything that came before. In recent interviews that haven't hit mainstream media yet, he's made pointed comments about how players from the 80s and 90s wouldn't survive in today's game. He's talked about how the three-point revolution has made the game more complex, more strategic, more difficult to dominate. On the surface, that sounds like analysis, but read between the lines. What he's really saying is that the legends who came before him, guys like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, and yes, Dennis Rodman, played in an easier era. That their accomplishments, while impressive for their time, don't measure up to what today's players are doing. And LeBron's not alone. Kevin Durant has been even more direct on social media. When fans bring up legends in debates, KD's been dismissive, sometimes mocking. There was an incident in January 2025 where a fan compared his defensive intensity to Rodman's, and KD's response was telling. He laughed it off, suggesting that the comparison was ridiculous because the defensive schemes back then were basic, and the offensive players weren't nearly as skilled as they are now. Think about that for a second. Kevin Durant just implied that Dennis Rodman, a guy who guarded everyone from Magic Johnson to Shaquille O'Neal, who won Defensive Player of the Year twice, who revolutionized the power forward position, played against inferior competition in a simpler system. Fans started noticing the pattern. Every time a legend from the past was brought up in comparison to modern stars, there was this dismissive tone, this subtle shade, this implication that anything before 2010 was basically the Stone Age of basketball. Social media erupted. Old heads were furious. Younger fans defended LeBron and KD, saying they were just speaking facts. But the legends themselves, they were watching, and they were getting tired of being treated like relics. The basketball community started to fracture. It wasn't just about nostalgia anymore. It was about something deeper, respect. The very foundation of sports is built on honoring those who came before you, acknowledging that you're standing on their shoulders, and LeBron and KD seem to be kicking those shoulders out from under them.
But I do agree that LeBron's not Jordan on many levels, not just this one, but there's a competitive edge and a competition, a will to be a part of competition that is missing from today's game as a whole. When you talk about Rodman's era and Jordan's era, nobody took days off. You know, unless you was playing against the Pistons and Bill Laimbeer punched you in the eye and you couldn't see, you played the next game. And so that is a difference in between who was the greatest.
And that's when Dennis Rodman decided he'd had enough. In late January 2025, Rodman sat down for an interview that hasn't been widely circulated yet, and he didn't hold back, not even a little bit. LeBron and KD, they're great players. Nobody's taken that away from them, Rodman started, his voice calm but with that edge anyone who knows him recognizes. But they need to show some damn respect. They act like we were out there playing checkers and they invented chess. That's bullshit. He continued, getting more animated. We played against killers, real killers. Every night was a war. You think LeBron would last one series against the bad boy Pistons? You think KD would survive getting clone-lined by Bill Laimbeer every time he drove to the rim? They wouldn't make it past the first round. But Rodman didn't stop there. He got specific, targeting the exact comments that had been bothering him and other legends. I've been hearing LeBron say players from our era wouldn't survive today. Wouldn't survive what? Softer rules? No hand-checking? Flagrant fouls for a hard screen? We would dominate this soft-ass era. The only difference is we'd probably get kicked out every other game for playing a real defense. Then he turned his attention to Kevin Durant, and KD talking about our defensive schemes being basic. Kid, I guarded centers. I guarded point guards. I guarded the best player on the court every single night, and I didn't need to switch everything or hide in a zone. Man-to-man, 40 minutes a game against Hall of Famers who actually wanted to kill you. Try that sometime instead of shooting threes from 30 feet. The interview went viral within hours. Not mainstream viral, not yet, but within basketball circles, this was nuclear. Rodman had said what a lot of legends were thinking, but were too polite or too worried about their brands to say out loud, and he wasn't done. You know what the real problem is? Rodman said, his voice dropping, getting serious. These guys don't honor the game. They don't honor the struggle. They think because they can shoot threes and have Instagram followers that they're greater than everyone who came before. That's not greatness. That's arrogance, and somebody needed to check them on it. The reaction was immediate and divided. Older fans and former players rallied behind Rodman, flooding social media with support. Comments like, "Finally someone said it," and "Rodman speaking truth" dominated the conversation. But younger fans, particularly LeBron and KD supporters, fired back hard, calling Rodman bitter, washed up, jealous of modern success. But here's the thing. Rodman doesn't care about Twitter wars or public perception. He never has. He said what he said because he believes it, and more importantly, because a lot of other legends believe it too, but won't say it publicly. The question everyone was asking, would LeBron and KD respond, or would they let Rodman's words hang in the air, unanswered? Within days, other legends started speaking up. Not everyone was as blunt as Rodman, but the message was clear. They agreed with him. Charles Barkley, never one to shy away from controversy, addressed it on a podcast that hasn't gone mainstream yet. "Dennis is right," Barkley said. "These young guys today act like the game started when they got drafted. They don't study history. They don't respect what we built. And honestly, it's embarrassing." Scottie Pippen, who's had his own complicated relationship with modern players and legacy debates, posted a cryptic message on social media in early February 2025. "You can't be the greatest if you don't respect the greats who came before you, period." Even Isaiah Thomas, usually diplomatic in his public statements, made comments suggesting that the lack of respect from modern superstars was disappointing and short-sighted. The generational divide was now impossible to ignore. On one side, the legends who dominated the 80s and 90s, who played through physical brutality, who built the NBA into the global powerhouse it is today. On the other side, today's superstars who believe their skill level, their versatility, their three-point shooting makes them superior to everything that came before. Social media became a battlefield. Analysts weighed in. Fans argued endlessly. But what made this different from typical sports debates was the personal nature of it. This wasn't about statistics or rings or hypothetical matchups anymore. This was about respect, about legacy, about whether LeBron James and Kevin Durant were honoring the game or disrespecting it. And through it all, LeBron and KD stayed silent. No tweets, no Instagram posts, no responses in post-game interviews. Just silence. That silence spoke volumes. Were they ignoring Rodman because they thought he wasn't worth responding to? Or were they staying quiet because they knew he had a point? Here's what nobody wants to talk about, but everyone's thinking. This controversy reveals something uncomfortable about LeBron and KD's approach to legacy building. Both of them are obsessed with being recognized as the greatest of all time. LeBron's chased Michael Jordan's ghost his entire career. KD's desperately wanted to be seen as one of the all-time greats, despite the criticism about his championships. And part of their strategy has been to elevate their own era while subtly diminishing previous ones. It's a calculated move, really. If you can convince people that the modern game is significantly harder, more skilled, more competitive than previous eras, then your accomplishments automatically look more impressive. If you can make people believe that legends from the past wouldn't survive today, then your dominance seems even greater by comparison. But here's the problem. That strategy requires disrespecting the very foundation the game is built on. It requires dismissing the sacrifices, the achievements, the greatness of players like Dennis Rodman, who won 5 championships, who revolutionized defensive versatility, who did the dirty work that nobody wanted to do so his teams could win. Rodman's not asking for pity. He's not asking for sympathy. He's asking for respect. And he's pointing out that LeBron and KD aren't giving it. There's also a cultural element to this that can't be ignored. The NBA has always been about passing the torch, about the young generation acknowledging and honoring the old guard before surpassing them. Magic and Bird respected Russell and Wilt. Jordan respected Magic and Bird. Kobe respected Jordan. That's how it's supposed to work. But somewhere along the way, that tradition broke down. LeBron and KD came up in an era of social media, hot takes, and constant legacy debates. They learned that the way to build your brand is to talk about yourself, to defend your greatness aggressively, to engage in debates. And in that environment, honoring the past became less important than establishing yourself as better than the past. The uncomfortable truth is this: LeBron and KD might be all-time great players, but they're failing as ambassadors of the game. They're failing to do what every generation before them did, which is honor the legends who made their success possible. And Dennis Rodman just called them out on it. But here's where it gets even more interesting. What if Rodman's right, but LeBron and KD don't care? What if they've calculated that the benefits of diminishing past eras outweigh the cost of disrespecting legends? What if they've decided that in the modern media landscape, controversy and bold claims get you more attention than humility and respect? If that's the case, then this isn't just about a generational conflict. It's about a fundamental shift in how NBA superstars approach their legacies. And that shift might be permanent.
So where do things stand now? As of late January 2025, this story is still developing, still unfolding, still dividing the basketball world. Dennis Rodman has said his piece. He's made it clear that he thinks LeBron and KD are out of line, that they need to show more respect, that their dismissive attitude toward past legends is unacceptable, and he's not backing down. Knowing Rodman, he'll probably double down if pressed. Other legends have rallied behind him, some publicly, others privately. There's a growing sense among former players that something has been lost in the modern NBA, that the respect and honor that used to define the league's culture has been replaced by ego and self-promotion. But LeBron and Kevin Durant haven't responded, not yet anyway. And that's the biggest question hanging over this entire controversy. Will they respond? And if they do, what will they say? There are a few possibilities here. They could ignore it completely, dismissing Rodman as a provocateur trying to stay relevant. They could address it diplomatically, offering some generic statement about respecting all eras while still defending their own greatness. Or they could fire back, escalating the conflict into an all-out war between generations. Each option carries risks. Ignoring it makes them look dismissive and proves Rodman's point about their lack of respect. Addressing it diplomatically might seem weak to their fans, who expect them to defend themselves aggressively. And firing back could unite the entire old guard against them, creating a PR nightmare that damages their legacies. But here's what makes this situation so fascinating. No matter what LeBron and KD do, the damage might already be done. Rodman's comments have exposed a truth that a lot of people were already feeling, but weren't articulating. The modern NBA's relationship with its own history is broken, and the two biggest stars of this generation are at the center of that breakdown. This isn't going away. Even if LeBron and KD never respond, even if this story never fully breaks into the mainstream media, the conversation has been started. Legends are talking, fans are divided, and the question of whether today's superstars respect the game's history is now permanently part of how we evaluate their legacies. Will this affect how LeBron is remembered when he retires? Will it impact Kevin Durant's standing among all-time greats? Maybe, maybe not. But it's certainly added a complicated layer to their stories that wasn't there before. And all because Dennis Rodman decided he'd had enough of the disrespect. But what do you think? Is Rodman right to call out LeBron and KD? Or are they just being honest about the evolution of the game? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this debate is far from over. And if you want to stay updated on the latest NBA drama that mainstream media isn't covering yet, hit that subscribe button. Because trust me, this story is about to get even crazier.